I was recently recommended the book Jade City by Fonda Lee, and I went on Goodreads and it had 68,000 reviews at over a 4-star rating, and I thought I was going to be in for something really good. It's described as the Godfather-esque sort of series where you have these warring family clans and they go against each other, and there's supposed to be mafia-style political intrigue and assassination and all this stuff. And it wasn't good. I just couldn't get into it. I know I'm just going to cut it there, and everybody can roast me online and tell me how wrong I am about it, because I'm sure that everyone has a different experience with every book. But for me, it just didn't do it. And I'm going to talk about why that is for me, starting with the characters. The three people, Lon, Shay, and Andon. If you haven't read the book, it's kind of like an older brother, his younger sister, and then sort of an adopted cousin. But Lon is like this big powerful guy, and he's calm and he's cool, he's collected, and he's super smart, and he is the leader. And then Shay, the younger sister, left the clan. She went off to the big country and she decided to come back, and her personality type is calm and cool and collected, and also she's really powerful and super smart. And then you have Andon, the cousin. He's still a student, so he's a bit younger than them, but he's a lot different than them because he's calm, cool, and collected, and also very powerful and super smart. So they always tell you when you're learning to write to kind of write what you know. That's a beginner tip that a lot of people get, but you might have a little bit too much self-insert. My hunch would be that the author in real life is probably a very calm, cool, and collected and smart person. So you want to see different personality types. You want to have somebody who's sort of a loose cannon, for example, and you have a character named Hilo who's sort of the middle brother who starts out that way. He kind of was a bad boy in school, and he's known to go off half-cocked. But then as the story progresses, he gets closer to his younger sister, and he's in harder situations. And once he gets in those harder situations, instead of using his nature that you've established for half the book as being the loose gun, he just kind of becomes calmer and cooler and more collected. Oh, by the way, he's very powerful and also very smart. I also have to say that the dialogue is very pedestrian. Like, you have a lot of situations where it feels as though the characters are on a sitcom looking directly into the camera and explaining things to the reader. Some of these passages are almost like a Star Wars movie scroll where it's just telling you what's happened. And they do this a lot through flashbacks, but none of those flashbacks are necessarily very important. They are lore building, and I will give you that you need to build your world out in some way, but it feels like that could be done much more naturally, and I'll probably talk about that more in a little bit. But the dialogue is just so clunky, and there are a lot of like even TV tropes where, you know, you'll have the killer who says, "Oh, how's Megan doing?" And then the guy says, "I never told you her name was Megan. You must be the bad guy." And they do stuff like that. It's, "How did you know I had this conversation?" "I didn't until now, but you just confirmed it." And it's so trite. And you have these characters that are supposed to be very smart. And for example, the leader of the opposing faction, the Mountain Clan, is supposed to be this brutal and brilliant person. She's murdered half of her own family to take control of her clan. And she comes and has a meeting with someone, and she's just described as being direct. And describing her as direct means that she details her entire plan to this person just with no imagery, no, illusion, no throwbacks to anything. It's just, "Oh, by the way, now that we're 4/5 of the way through the book, if you didn't pick up on it yet, this was my evil plan," which, by the way, doesn't make any sense. Her evil plan is to sell a bunch of drugs to 2 different foreign powers, and then those foreign powers will have a war with each other, and then she'll profiteer off of, like, it has nothing to do with taking over her opposing clan. She could have just taken over the opposing clan, and then she would have a monopoly on foreign sales anyway. So trying to incite some foreign war doesn't make any sense at all. And the clan leader says that she's having this meeting because she wants this person in the clan to betray their relative and kill that relative and then come join her and be evil with her, and they'll rule the galaxy as father and son or whatever. And the person just says, no, I'm not going to do that, and then leaves. So the whole meeting was pointless other than to exposition dump the reader and say, just in case you didn't know, here was the plan. And this is a leader who was supposed to be so clever and brutal, and she just comes to this person and details her entire plan without having the expectation that that person would join her. Why would she risk that? Why would she do it? Why would she give away all of this information to her rivals at no cost and great risk? It makes no sense that this person would give all of that information away without having any chance of gaining from it. And then the good guy, the hero, who rejects the proposal, if they're so smart, why didn't they accept it? Oh, I want you to betray your family member. Well, if you're really clever, wouldn't you say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm on your side now. Totally trust me. And if you really want the political intrigue, you can take this situation and escalate it past that. The clan leader goes to the family member. The family member says, yeah, I'll betray them. But the clan leader knows that the family member's lying, and the family member knows that the clan leader knows that they're lying. So who's going to betray who? How are they going to make this play out? Who can get the backstab off faster? And you could really have political intrigue, but instead they just dump the exposition, and then you walk out of the cave and it doesn't really matter. And this is kind of a situation where there really weren't any stakes, and that's a big problem with the entire novel. Most of it's kind of boring because there are never really any stakes. Like, even when someone dies, someone important dies, they die in such a boring, mundane way that it almost feels inconsequential. Like, you expect it to just be undone because it doesn't make sense that it was so pointless and simple. And I get that you can make the argument that in real life sometimes deaths are pointless and simple, but we read books to get away from real life. We want them to be portrayed in a way that's meaningful and worth our time. So if you have all these situations where there are basically no stakes and you have all these flashbacks to things that didn't matter, it becomes hard to figure out what the goal of the book actually is. So you don't really see what the stakes are or what the powers of these people in this fantasy magic world even are until almost the end of the book. A good 4/5 or 5/6 of the way through the book, you finally get to see what some of the powers are. So you finally see through Andon in the academy what the students are doing, and you learn for the first time when the book is almost over that people can levitate themselves up as though they're flying for a little bit and reach high ledges. And you've sort of known that people can channel power through other people, but you learn for the first time when the book is almost over that they don't even have to make physical contact. Some people are so strong that they can just explode your organs with their minds, like Jedi. And so you wonder why all these people are having fist fights on the street when someone could just fly over your house and blow up your head with their mind. And the author finally gets around to doing that for like a couple pages. And even when it happens, it's this duel to the death between one of the heroes and the evil clan leader's big henchman. And this is somebody who should be like world famous, at least famous in his own country. So the stakes are huge here. It's who's going to control their entire country. And there are like 10 people in the room. And they aren't even named. They aren't even important people. So the evil clan's just allowing their members to jump in. And of course, the hero is fighting the good fight. But the entire country has a huge stake in the outcome of this fight. It's going to determine who their leader is. So why is it just like 10 people having a brawl in a back room somewhere? This could easily be a situation where you up the stakes of everything. Put that fight on TV, make it in an arena, a cage death match, have people walking down the street and they're crowding around the electronics store window so they can all watch it on TV. You're in the gambling den and they turn off the beloved horse races so they can see this big fight. Everyone would care about this, and it's just something that's happened in like a dirty closet somewhere. And it makes it feel so much less important. And the author really struggles with the sense of scale of everything being so small. And this is a problem that's persistent through the entire book. The author does not want to describe her world to us. And it's so frustrating because I want to be in the world with these characters. When they walk down the street, I want to see that street in my mind. And I can't because she just says stuff like, down at the docks. Well, I have a generic image of my head, what docks look like, but are we talking about a technologically advanced society with the best boats that have ever been made and luxury speed yachts? Are we talking about a dock that's 50 meters long and there are only 2 piers? Or is it a mile long and there are ships in the water stretching into the horizons because everybody wants to come to this place? We have no idea. And the whole book gives you no idea what anything looks like. And there are just places that have silly names. Like there's a place called the Armpit. You can do that, I guess. It's sort of comic booky to have the underbelly or, Hell's Kitchen or whatever. You see this sometimes in comics, but the more tactful way to do this, if you're trying to write a serious book, would be an example like from Batman. They have a place called the Narrows, which is really bad. And it's called that because there's like a narrow channel that runs through it, I guess is the reasoning. But you could imagine someone living in Chateau of, the Narrows, like some generically named apartment complex that you wouldn't know unless you go there is really crappy. But your own territory is called the Armpit. You're forcing people who are your clan and your sworn brothers to live in a place called the Armpit. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe you'd call your enemy's territory that. But even then, okay, I get that it's a rundown place, but you have these scenes that take place and like, oh, here's a casino. Well, what kind of a casino is it? Do you have wooden chairs and little square tables and old timers sitting around playing poker with their buddies? And, it's not even for money. They're just throwing plastic tokens around. Or is this like a pachinko parlor where you go in and it's lights and noise and you can't even hear yourself think? What kind of casino? I don't know, but I know they serve fried squid balls there because vaguely Asian stuff here and there gets sprinkled around, and that's it. That's all you really get. You also have places like a garden that every character seems to love strolling through the garden, but what kind of garden is it? Is it a flower garden? What kind of flowers? Do you have a seasonal garden? In the fall, you can describe the changing colors on the leaves, and then in the spring, you can have a special green jade flower that's the symbol of the clan or something to show the passage of time, because everything is supposed to be really urgent, and it matters when the students graduate from the academy because the clan needs them to go be soldiers, and you're supposed to have this sense of foreboding coming from the other enemy camp. But you have simple things like this that could show the passage of time or describe the setting, 2 birds with 1 stone. And instead of doing any of those things, you just do nothing. We just never really get anything very well described. And I think that's my biggest peeve with this book, is that it feels like it's unintentionally a young adult book. You pick it up and it's sort of marketed to adults, just a normal fiction book. And once you get into it, it's very YA. And there are so many things that just don't make sense. And I'm not going to read the rest of it, but I did read a synopsis just to see where things went and if it would be worth it to me. But it feels like if you're playing a video game that's 100 hours long and someone tells you that it doesn't get fun until you're 60 hours in, or there's a TV show that's 10 episodes long and they tell you the first 7 are kind of slow, is it really worth your time? To me, it's not. But to a lot of people, there are other themes that resonate with them. The middle kid syndrome, where granddad likes this kid and mom likes this one, but the one in the middle doesn't really have anyone who's pandering to him, and he has to find his own place and figure out what he's going to do with his life on his own. And a lot of us can relate to those sorts of melodramatic themes. A lot of people do go through those things, but it tries to treat those with equal seriousness to other much bigger themes that don't really pan out at all. For example, the grandfather's good best friend was a child abuser, and he did bad things to Shay when she was a child. And when she has the ability to get rid of this person, she just doesn't do it. And in book 2, she has the ability to get rid of him again and doesn't do it. But apparently in book 2, her love of her life betrays the clan by letting someone into the compound. He's blackmailed because the enemy clan is threatening to kill his family or something like that. She executes the love of her life because he was protecting his family. He was loyal to his family that she was trying to be a part of. So if she had married him and become part of his family, he would have been that loyal to her. But then she killed him, but she let the guy who loves children in strange ways just go. What's going on? The author doesn't know what matters or what should matter, and everything being treated with equal importance does not work. It's a little bit outdated at this point, but if you've ever seen what's now an old movie starring Wesley Snipes called Blade, I like that as an example of a good hook. It's not a great movie, but it's got a fantastic hook. Let me set the scene for you. It opens up, there's a nightclub, and everyone inside is dancing. There are strobe lights, and you see Blade, the hero, walk in, and he's got a cool haircut and sunglasses and a black leather outfit, and he's looking around this nightclub, and the sprinkler system comes on and it's raining blood, and all the vampires go crazy and they start feasting on the normies who are in the club. And then Blade pulls out his sword. Big surprise, his name is Blade, and he starts killing all the vampires. And right away, you know, without any dialogue, what the situation is. Vampires exist in this world. They obviously have some kind of underworld system set up because they own nightclubs, and there's this guy who's out to kill them, and he's very skilled and he's not afraid of anything, and it's probably going to be some kind of big action movie. And you can tell all of this with no dialogue. Whereas in a book like this, you have 25 hours to build your world, and you fail to do that. And in the last 5 hours of the book, actually, to be honest, it's the last 2.5 hours of a 30-hour book that were actually interesting. If you like a slow burn, boy, is it a slow burn. There is no hook. The runway time is so long that you will not think the plane is going to get off the ground. Some people might like that and strap in for the long haul, but looking at Goodreads, the first book has 68,000 ratings. The second book has 33,000, and the last book has 26,000. So even though the ratings are all above 4 stars, you have to kind of assume that there is a natural attrition to this. The people who stuck with the series liked it just as much or more in the end as they did in the beginning, but it seems like I'm not alone with this. And even though the books are rated 4 stars, it looks like just from the first book to the second one, there was about half the audience just said, you know what, I can't do it anymore. So I hope I'm not alone on that. If I were to meet with the author and have to give her some piece of advice as someone who's only the reader and not some big famous published author, I would say that the number one thing to do if you're writing anything, even if it's just an essay for school, is to ask yourself the so what question. At the end of anything you write, whether it's an essay or a paragraph or a whole chapter, just ask yourself, so what? What happened here? And what's the point of it? If you have all this stuff that happens and you have a flashback and you have a guy and his personality is this and her personality is that, and in their childhood this happened, okay, but so what? How does that tie into what's already happened, or how does that tie into what's going to happen? It needs to have some kind of thread connecting it to everything else, or it fails the so what question. If you have this meeting that doesn't do anything but dump exposition to the reader, the so what is, well, we already knew that because we're not stupid. You can't treat your readers like they're stupid. It fails the so what test. So that's my biggest takeaway from all of this. It's unintentionally young adult. It treats the readers like they're too dumb to get what's going on. So there's a lot of exposition dump, a lot of very oversimplified dialogue, and you end up with a lot of characters who just sort of meld into the same person as the book goes on. Maybe they get their personalities back later on down the road, but I don't have the patience to find out.